There's more cookies and cheesecake if anybody's interested. Let's start by introducing ourselves, and the reason we're here today is reminiscing about growing up in Middletown. And most of us here today have grown up in Middletown.
Well, some of us have grown up in the county, but not in Middletown.
Well, I know, but I'm sure you've heard Myron talk about the store. Jim, we'll start. Let's all introduce ourselves.
Jim Hoover.
Larry Bozick.
Alan Koblenz.
Joyce Koblenz.
Rudy Harmon.
Myron Ahawk.
Billy Ahawk.
Well, good. Greg, did we get you?
Oh, Greg White.
Good. Thank you. What is your favorite memory about growing up in Middletown? And one of your earliest memories?
I think the blizzard of '66 when Route 40 was completely drifted over. Do you remember the main street in Middletown? Nobody could get through.
I remember that very well, and I have a photograph of my father walking down the middle of Main Street, which is that exact blizzard. Yes, it was amazing.
Sometime in the late 40s, early 50s, my sisters, Diane and Susie, and I decided that we were going to count 100 cars going by my house. And I live on Main Street between the two schoolhouse streets, the same house I still live in today. So we got pencil and paper, we went out on the porch, and we sat there, and we sat there, and finally gave up. We never got 100 cars, and now today, you wouldn't have to sit there very long.
You could sit there for 5 minutes.
Yeah, especially between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning, or 4 to 5 in the evening.
Right.
So.
Right. And I have the same thing on Church Street.
Yeah.
As a child, it was a little country road where hardly any cars would go by, and now there's rarely a minute that goes by that a car doesn't go zooming up the road.
Well, you know, when we grew up, you lived on your porch, kind of.
Yes, that's
And
true.
I used to spend hours on the porch, and Gary Palmer would sit next to me, and he would take Fords, and I would take Chevys. As the cars went by, we had a contest. And I think I always won, actually.
I think
Well,
you should
indeed.
have gotten together. You know,
Yeah, we should have.
Yeah.
I've heard that story before. And like, somebody told me that about counting 100 cars. Amazing.
Alan, what's your earliest memory?
I remember in elementary school, we had to walk down to the field
Yeah.
to play lots of times. We didn't always go behind the school. We would
Right.
walk down in the grass fields. A lot of times it wasn't, only a little bit of it was mowed. The other part was real tall.
Right.
I guess where the Hart Medical Center is
Yes.
now.
Athletic
Yes.
field. They called it
Yeah.
the athletic field.
Yeah.
And now it's Memorial Park.
And the water fountain was there.
It's still there.
Yeah.
A different one. but
It's a
it was-
different one.
It was always located there.
Yes.
Yes. And of course, I'd walk across that field every day on the way to school. And one of my memories is on foggy days, you get in the middle of what is now the park, and you couldn't see anything. And it was really kind of spooky, but fun at the same time. What are some memories of some of the early businesses in Middletown that you can think of?
Maine's Ice Cream.
Maine's Ice Cream.
I remember brother and I, grandfather dipped ice cream here. He'd have us come over on Saturday, Sunday evenings. We were little.
Yeah.
Fill the 5 and 10 gallon cans up with warm water so clean before he went home. He'd give us a big plate of ice cream. We'd go out back and sit.
Yeah.
I remember the lines on Main Street too, getting in there.
Oh, I bet. And I remember your grandfather very well when he'd be there. Yes. Yes.
Durr store had the penny candy.
Yeah.
Durr's store is one of my favorite memories of growing up
Yeah.
in Middletown. They had the best penny candy case in the world, I thought.
Mr. Durr reach in there and give you a piece every once in a while, so you come back.
Well, you must have been special.
Well, he
Oh,
was,
you all were ornery.
he was special. And I used to go to Durr's store and buy my mother presents for like her birthday or Mother's Day. And Osmond Durr told her one time that when I picked out a present, I just always happened to have the right amount of money. In other words, he would let me have it, even though I didn't have the right money. So I always thought that was very generous, but I had no idea that's.
I remember the candy counter at Durr's, but the other thing I remember was potato chips.
Really?
They got their potato chips in a lard can, and then they would put them in a brown paper bag, and the grease from the potato chips would come out in the side and the bottom of the bag before you got out of the store.
Wow. I wonder if they were Utz.
I don't know, they're probably making them out back.
I remember going to Gates Variety Store and Mr. and Mrs. Gates were there. Mr. Gates had the glasses that were like
Bottle.
this thick, and I always thought how could he see anything? He seemed to be blind pretty much.
I think he was almost.
Then there was Liechtenstein's, which was, what was Liechtenstein? Nelson's 5 and 10.
It was Creevy's originally.
Creevy's, that's right.
Well, but if you go back farther, didn't Harry Holter have a barber shop in there before Creevy's?
Oh, he did, and then he moved over beside a blonde.
That was before my time.
I don't remember Harry.
I don't either.
I remember that barber shop in there. And Rice had the barber
He was
shop.
on the corner of the building that tore down,
Huh?
on the Butts property.
Yeah, Rice
Yes.
was in the bottom of that.
Yes, I remember
And that's
that.
the one that Patsy, Rudy was talking about at
Yes.
one meeting about living upstairs
Hearing
and
the
listening,
language.
listening
Yes.
to them talking downstairs.
Yes,
So would those have been in the 50s or the 40s?
it would have been in the 50s.
The 40s and the 50s.
Well, the 40s and the 50s, but we wouldn't have necessarily remembered the 40s. I guess we could have, I guess.
Yeah.
By the time in the 60s, I remember Arnett's
Yes.
Yeah.
and then Gates's. That was always a treat because my parents didn't eat out, but when I stayed with my aunt who lived outside of Middletown, that was a treat to go there because you got lunch. And eating out wasn't something you got to do. So I can remember sitting there with that, ordering something, and Mr. and Mrs. Gates. And then I remember a lady that worked at the post office also. She was like the postmaster at Braddock, but I thought she would work down there too.
Oh, Mrs. Beachley?
I'm not sure. I just remember I would see the face, same face it seemed like.
I can't remember her name, but
Well, in that store where Gates's was located was originally,
Beachley's.
no, Ingles Hardware. That's where
Really?
Ingles
that's right,
Hardware
Ingles.
was.
Beachley was in there.
And then
That's right.
after that, it was Beachley's, right?
Yeah.
It was Beachley's Drugstore, they called it, I
And
think.
there was two women that had it for a while.
And then,
Ida Wessinger and
Yes.
somebody else for a year or two. Ida Wessinger,
and
another
then,
lady.
and then Gates's bought it, right? And it was Gates's for a long
My
time.
brother Wayne worked at Engels when they were where Sportsland is.
Yeah, Sportsland now, yes,
You know, we had 4 grocery stores down there at one time, similar stores.
yes.
You had American Store, you had
Bailey's.
Roland Boyers, right there where Westland Apartments is.
Well,
Yeah.
that before it was before it was Boyers, it was Janet and Joe Young,
Jared and Joe Young.
and it was
before that,
another store. Something
George
before that.
Dow was in there.
Yeah.
He moved from the old hotel across the street. Then you had Bailey's down the bottom of the hill.
But that was
was that before Shambles?
Huh?
Not Shambles.
Stanfield.
Stanfield, yeah.
Yes.
It was
Yeah,
Bailey's.
but it was Austin Marker built that
Right.
right after war, I think.
Well, one of the things I remember about where Boyer's store was, And was that the last people that had it? Was somebody from out of town moved in?
Thermite, cease.
Well, somebody moved into town and bought that store, and right under the store it said open on Sundays.
Yeah.
And I remember Pastor Burkhart giving a sermon about
Created quite a stir.
that. If you could imagine. I mean, that was something that just didn't happen in Middletown. You didn't have any business open on Sunday. And that was the first one.
Did they violate the blue law, or did the blue law changed, or didn't it
I don't
apply
think-
here?
This was before the blue law.
I think it was. I think it was. But
The blue laws wasn't until the 70s, was it?
I think the blue law, you couldn't.
The 80s?
I would say 80.
80s?
Like $80.
oh, don't you think it was the 70s or not?
I'm thinking it might have been the 80s, because it
Really?
was after we were married.
Oh, was it?
I think it's
Oh,
the 80s.
Was it the 80s? They changed all that. But
I joked that that was the beginning of the end, because now everybody's so stressed.
well, and I remember Pastor Burkhart saying, and a business like that in this community won't stay here very long, and they didn't. So,
We also had Fink's Shoe Repair.
well,
That was
yeah.
right in that same area.
Well, it was underneath
Front porch of
the
Yeah.
yes
property.
of that
Warrior was here,
huge
the front porch
property.
went up, and he was down here. I remember that,
Yes.
remember that clock with that black cat's paw?
Yes.
And he had a
yes.
pipe that he smoked that was in the form of a shoe.
We used to buy our shoes and clothing at Warren's Men's Shop, which was
Oh,
Oldham's.
yeah.
Mhm.
We didn't go to Frederick to buy stuff. Well, you might have. We did.
Well, we would, since Mother didn't drive, Dad would drive us into town, and we'd spend the day in Frederick shopping, and then he'd come back to Frederick, pick us up, and we'd go back to Middletown. But we used to go to Ohlers to buy things.
And then there was Long's
Shoes.
Appliances right
Longs,
next to it.
yes. And now we're talking about the corner of Church and Main, where it's all part of the Main Cup Rennigan complex.
Let me tell you that the school system, when I've worked for the school system for 4 years, whenever we needed to get washers, dryers, or appliances, not for a brand new school, but replacement, I always called Mr. and Mrs. Long.
Mm-hmm.
And, they weren't big on formalizing, but you just call them and she'd answer the phone, or Mr. Long would get her, and off you went, and you knew it was reliable,
Right.
They said they were coming on a certain day to deliver, they did.
But you know, we got a refrigerator from them, and after they delivered it and everything, I found it was scratched on the side.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Mrs. Long, and I'm like, Mrs. Long, this is Rudy Horman. I just found a scratch on the side. She goes, okay, thanks for calling. Bye. Like, what the heck?
Well,
I was gonna say,
I never checked for scratches.
As she got older.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, as she
what
got
was
older.
saying.
what she'd say, enjoy it.
Enjoy the scratch.
I was gonna say, Myron's wife said, earlier said something about Longs and calling and getting approval. I said, you need to call at nighttime and get Chuck. You could've gone for half price.
That's
Oh, that
true.
was his son, their son, right?
None of them went out the
Yeah.
back door when they needed money. When
Yeah,
he needed
oh
money.
my. Well, I didn't know those things.
I
Also,
remember
wasn't
Chuck going through town on a motorcycle with overalls on, one side down, looking like a wild man, actually.
Well, and he was.
Huh?
He was sort of a wild.
I don't know much about it.
He
Well, he's
was.
still,
He's in a nursing home.
because I know the girl, the people up at Braddock Post Office used to write his checks and pay his bills for a while. And I thought, oh gosh, how trusting.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I'm sorry to hear that, but he's being
Yeah.
cared for. He's being cared for, so.
Where is he?
Still there.
Oh, is he?
He was.
I assume.
He's had a bunch of strokes.
Yes, yes.
I took a friend once into Mary Fulmer's, and they said, only in Middletown could you have a dry cleaning and a library in the same room.
Well, it was sort of like.
She had the dry cleaning
yeah.
part here, and the library was like right here.
And people would laugh about Rudy's cold beer and welding on the
Yeah.
edge of town.
They still do.
Yeah.
You had a Greyhound bus
Still
stop
there.
here.
Yeah.
You had a Greyhound bus stop, right where the restaurant is now.
That's true.
They sold tickets and had a bench out there people would sit on.
Yes.
The Potomac bus lines would just stop along the
Right where
street.
Dempsey's restaurant is now, across from Lutheran Church.
Potomac bus lines before the
Greyhound bus
Greyhound
stop.
would just stop along the street.
And you have trolley
let you off,
station back where the
pick you
Model
up.
Garage is.
Oh, really? Without reservations or anything?
Potomac bus lines. I
Yeah.
said they would drop you off along the street. They also delivered the paper. Drop you off along the street or pick you up along the street. And they ran to Hagerstown, fresh to Hagerstown.
Well, now, who did Stephanie Esworthy's father?
Greyhound.
Was that Greyhound? Well, yeah, you know. She's your cousin. Greyhound. I knew he did, but I couldn't remember which one.
But now the other business that I know you knew about was my grandfather lived on the corner of Broad Street and Main Street on the south side there, and there was a little store there. It was Beachley's, and it was my uncle Walter Beachley that had it at the time that we used to go to it, and they just had, you know, I guess milk and bread and candy and incidentals, popsicles. I had some ice cream, not much, but that had been in my grandmother's family for a long time, and then she had a son, Vince Beachley, which you know about, that owned Ingalls, which was what was it called? D.M. Beachley's?
D.D. Beachley and Son.
And it was
Sold
coal,
farm implements, tractors.
stone,
Yeah, anything.
and the trolley tracks went behind there,
Dump coal.
and they would bring stuff. They would bring like stone and coal out from Frederick and go up on those ramps and drop
They
them.
have bins there.
Yeah, well, those bins I think are still in the back of that
Yeah,
store.
they are there. We've seen them. Yeah.
Well, now, would that have been Walter Beachley's father originally? Or
No, Walter Beachley's father was my grandmother's brother.
Okay.
And
So it was Walter that had it.
no, it was his brother.
Oh, his brother.
Yeah, Vince Beachley.
Well, what did Walter Beachley do?
Well, he worked for Vince.
Oh,
And then when his one sister took it over, when Ezra Beachley died, his one daughter, Tabitha, took it over and ran it. And when she died, then I guess the store across the street where Ingalls is was winding down. I don't know. But anyhow, Walter left there and came over and ran the store till
oh.
he got put in a nursing home sometime.
Wasn't Walter Beachley a Burgess?
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yes.
a Burgess.
Yeah.
And that was Regina Maine's father.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He was
And
a
I
Burgess.
think at some time he lived in that house where Bill and Olive Long lived, that red brick house.
Oh, and then he moved down the street to the white weatherboard house.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Do you remember when Bailey's ran the little store?
Oh,
And
yes.
next door was Mr. Flieger, and he would
Yes.
make baskets. He wove baskets.
Bruised baskets.
Yeah,
She makes rows. Rows.
she was actually scary.
Two.
His wife.
Fligger, I can't remember
Yeah.
her name. I
don't
can
know.
visualize her very well.
I would go there and watch him weave the baskets. You could watch him actually do it. She was. Oh, I'm not gonna get too personal. Just film.
No, I want to know. Why was she
She
scary?
just looked to me like a witch.
Well, and she was kind of that kind of character. And at one point, my brother had bought a basket sleigh when he had horses. And he went down to Mr. Fligger and said, "Would you mend this basket sleigh for me that he had bought someplace?" And he said, "Only if you'll help." So Alan went down and helped Mr. Fligger mend this basket sleigh, and now the basket sleigh is at the Carriage Museum in Frederick. We gave it to them last year. But I thought it was interesting.
Is that the
you
one
said-
that I had?
No, the one you have is out in the country.
Oh, you junked it?
No, somebody took it. Somebody took it. But the one that we had was in good condition, except a little bit of mending.
Well, now, what was the building at Reed's across from Bailey's or Markers, whatever? It was like a little gas station, but
It was-
wasn't there a house there too?
Well, the Reed House was next to the gas station store, and that was a little general store and gas station.
And now the only thing there is a parking lot for,
Well, that's where the
The
Reed
park-
House
that's what-
was,
oh,
and
okay.
the
You can go in the basement
store,
underneath, you can drive in
yeah.
there.
yeah, the store was where the actual building is now that who has that? State Police?
That's
Fraternal?
Frederick County Police.
Frederick County Police, and that's where the store gas station was. Do you remember that
A
being
little
there?
bit, I got a couple different pictures of that.
Yeah, there's that
Yeah.
one picture.
Of the parade?
Yeah, of the parade.
Yes.
And you can see the side of the house.
Mhm.
We
You
just
can
showed
see
that
all
the
of
other day, we were
those
talking about
kids. Yeah, we were just talking about that.
It was a really old house. It was a log house.
When we were growing up, Gene Carell lived in there.
He did?
Bruce Carell.
I didn't remember that.
His mother Hilda.
Yeah. But, and then, of course, then next to that was part of the tannery where my grandfather started the store in the old tannery building. Which I remember the old tannery building, and then, of course, the furniture store was built, the main part was built in 1929, the month before the Depression. So it was finished.
Had that time, didn't they?
Hmm?
Your grandfather had that time right, didn't he?
Perfect.
Well,
timing.
but he also had the funeral business, and people continued to die. They weren't buying furniture, but they continued to die. So that's how they got through the Depression. And they also used to have a building behind that was full of old furniture that people would trade in on new furniture. And it sat there for years, just full of beautiful old cupboards and things. It was amazing.
I have a thing up there, and you've probably seen it. I've been put in a frame, it's sort of oblong, it has a cone pocket in front. It says Home, Sweet Home.
Mm-hmm.
And on the front of it says CKT Gladhill,
Mm-hmm.
fine furniture, violins, and the bottom line says embalming.
Yeah.
Middletown, Maryland.
See, it's sort of like cold beer and welding.
Yeah, oh, very well.
And cleaners and library. I mean, they combine
Too
things.
much, you get the other service.
Yeah.
One business wasn't going well, the other one hopefully picked up.
Yes, yes.
Well, I think it's remarkable that your mother is still going strong. She was the operator when I grew up. We didn't have phone. We didn't even have dial. We just picked up the phone, and your mother was there, or one of the Lighter sisters. Didn't they do that?
Yeah, I was gonna say a while ago, you were talking about things you remember in town. I think the worst beating I ever got from my father, and my brother was part of this, he got just as bad.
Yeah,
as-
blame it on him, he's not here.
If I wouldn't have got hit so hard, I'd probably be only about 5'6". But you remember Beulah Lighter?
Yeah.
They were my grandfather who was killed. Aunts, sisters,
Okay.
and neither one were married.
Irene.
Neither one married. Irene was a very pleasant person. Booby, we called her, could be a little, what we thought was witch, like we talked about, were nasty.
Which one had the dark hair?
Booby.
Beulah.
Well, she was out back to the privy. He lived right next to where my barber shop is, and they had an outdoor bathroom there. And Barry and I wanted little rascals, and we tried to upset that time with her in it.
Oh, my. Oh,
My
my.
father called us.
I thought maybe you
Oh,
locked
my.
the door.
No, we weren't
That
working.
was worse.
We
Wow.
tried to upset it. She was a hollering. We couldn't get it over, and Pat called us.
Oh, my. I bet.
I had to stand up for a couple of days to eat.
Well, I remember talking about that. Dad used to say in the middle of the athletic field at Halloween, they used to take corn shocks from out the country and put them in the middle of the athletic field and set them on fire. And then there was another tale that he had told me about a privy, that they had stolen somebody's privy and put it in the middle of the athletic field. But that's very vague in my mind.
I used to bring the bike rack down. from
One of
school,
the other
put the
things
brick on.
that I guess I remember about Middletown was that my father was a rural mail carrier. And of course, you know, he knew everybody on his mail route. And most of us here in town knew each other. And if you did something wrong, before you got home,
What do you do about it?
your parents knew about it. Now, my sisters and I each had a tricycle, and we'd ride up the street to Broad Street from my house, then turn around and come back. But my mother's parents lived down on Broad Street, but we weren't allowed to go down that side of the street to get to their house, so we'd just turn around and come back. And George Roderick lived kind of across from the gas station, and he had a sidewalk around a hedge that he had planted that was round, and we always, you know, we weren't tall enough to see over that hedge, so one day I guess I probably cut in there first, and my sisters followed me and went around, and right where the porch step come off the house, there was an opening in this hedge that you could go in the center of it, and I guess it was just grass in there. That's all I remember. But we rode the whole way around there and come out the sidewalk, and before we got home, boy, we no more and got in the door, and man, we got it.
Oh, Mrs.
Yeah,
Roderick.
everybody knew who
Wow.
everybody on that street was, and we were the youngest kids.
I
And,
knew everybody in town.
yeah. So, and today, you don't know anybody hardly.
Where did you live before Main Street?
Huh?
Where did you live before that?
That's the only place I've
Is
ever
that the
been.
only place you ever?
Yeah.
He and Jimmy Hout both have that same distinction.
Well,
Jimmy Hout's another.
yeah.
Grew up in the same
Well,
house, still
Tommy
lives there.
Rowson,
Well, true, Tommy.
well,
he's lived a couple different places.
yeah, that's true. Well, and I was born in the house where on Church Street, so. And Annette still lives in her house. Sarah still lives in her house.
So there's a couple now.
Yeah, yeah. There are a few people that just have never left. Definitely.
Well, if you think that story is the norm, be the preacher's kid in Middletown
Oh,
in the
my.
60s.
Got her that way more?
That's like
You didn't
being-
have to go 10 feet before somebody knew what was going
That
on.
was like a goldfish bowl. I mean, your house was like I found that out after I bought it. I thought, and I even said, I thought, how did anybody, a family, I mean, because everybody saw every movement and it was difficult.
Right.
I mean, you were right there, the center of everything. So, your mother handled it well.
Yes.
She really did.
Well, my father and Butch's father were quite a range in age difference. I don't know how they ever became friends. Other than, yes, my mother and her sister married Glenn Gladhill.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, again, a small town like that, you knew a lot of things that were going on. They used to have picnics together and that kind of stuff. And anyhow, Butch's father was my father's substitute on the mail route, on this rural mail route. And in the wintertime, it would snow. So my father would come to the school and get me out of school and take me along on the mail route. And in that way, I could get out of the car and get in the snow to get in the mailbox, put the mail in the mailbox. And some of these roads that he had, I mean, like Middletown Road, Frosttown Road, they were just dirt. They were terrible. and he'd come out to the schoolhouse. Of course, you know, today you wouldn't be able to do that, but you know, and they have these mail trucks and all that stuff. But this was just our personal car that he used every day to handle the mail.
What about hauling the chickens?
Well, that's a different story.
Tell story after story.
Yeah, whenever your dad substituted for your father, my sister, brother, and I, he would take turns taking us because we all wanted to go. The funny thing is, I didn't know until I got older that he liked my sister going because she could read. And you know, she could read the names, and it was so much easier. When Alan and I would go, we were not really any help at all. We'd just stick it in the box for him, but we couldn't read anything. But we always looked forward to it. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun, definitely. So let's see what else. How about the church? Growing up in the church. And I know Mara and I have lots of memories growing up in Zion Church, from going to Sunday school through catechism to church services. And I guess, now, you were in this church for most of your childhood, weren't you, Rudy?
Well, we went to church about 4 times a year, twice here, twice in my dad's.
But did the Rudys belong to this church?
My mother did, yes, until they
But I
went
mean,
around.
did Vera Rudy, was he a reformer or
I
a
don't know
Lutheran?
that.
You don't remember?
I have no memories of
I just, for some reason, probably thought they were Lutherans.
that. He died when I was 1, and she died when I was like 8.
Really? I remember her very well. And of course, Dad talked about your grandfather all his life, Vera Rudy.
I hate to admit I had a grandfather named Vera, but
But
that wasn't his name.
that was a man's name.
Well, they called him Veer.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, just short to Veer.
And I remember your grandmother very well. And you were in the Lutheran church, weren't you, or were you here? You were here. But there were a lot of Covenances in the Lutheran church. Now, Howard and Austin and Paul were brothers?
No, cousins.
Cousins. But I knew that
Their fathers were brothers.
their fathers were brothers. So half of them went to this church and half went to the Lutheran church.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know when they split it off.
Yes. Well, and it
Yeah, I was trying to think.
depended a lot of time who you married.
Yeah.
So, Paul's mother, was she a member in Zion?
In Martha?
Yeah.
She was an A-hole.
So A-Halls might have been in Zion, so that would have been why he moved there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the wife dictated who you
Oh.
married, dictated where you went to church.
Oh, definitely.
Still
You
does.
think?
Isn't that right?
Oh, I didn't dictate, you chose.
Just kidding. I remember, I remember, you know, being here as a kid, and during the church service, you'd hear the fire alarm go off, the sirens go off, and you'd see a bunch of the men getting up and popping
Leave.
out the door.
Oh, definitely. Yes. Volunteers.
Absolutely. Donnie,
That
Walls
happened.
would go out.
Yeah. That happened at our church too.
Yeah.
Before the central alarm system, I understand the calls would come in to the pastor here in the parsonage, and they'd have to run over and pull the alarm.
Really?
So he was the first one to know about any fire emergency in town.
Wow.
Time filters.
Yeah, Reverend Kleinfeld.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember him very well too.
And I can also remember, like, we came to Middletown some, maybe to the feed store.
Yes.
I can remember going to Arnett's and having that happen. The alarm would go off and you could just see people running to the firehouse just from that corner.
The model garage was the same way. Landfill was
Yes.
the same
Oh,
way.
yes. A lot of the firemen worked at the furniture store and the warehouses. So
Well, that continued for many years.
it did.
It just seemed funny to see them running.
Yes.
There's no place to park.
Yeah, but they weren't, what they were interested in was who was gonna drive the fire,
truck.
and you only had one.
Oh, yeah.
I remember once they didn't make it to one of their fires, remember? Was that on the Myersville Road?
Yeah.
Was it the Marsville Road? And my uncle broke his knee, and I remember that because my sister was having my cousin and brother and I for one of her little shows we do in the summer. And so they came and told my cousin that her father broke his knee, and of course she was thinking of how, she said she was thinking of how when one of her dolls got broken it would fall off. So she thought his leg had fallen off, and she got hysterical. But it was just a minor thing, actually. You know?
I remember some really sad days that were like when Bo Keller
Oh,
was flying the Walker family and they
Yes.
crashed and they were all killed.
how tragic. Yes.
Joy Keller, when Joy died.
Yes.
That was a very hard thing for this community to
Oh,
handle.
it was. It was.
She was a young, what's she, like 6th grade or something?
She was in the 7th grade, and
She had appendicitis.
they thought she had appendicitis,
Oh, she did.
and found out after surgery she actually had a perforated stomach, and she died from peritonitis, I guess. But yes, that was very tragic, very sad, just like Bev and the Walters. So, yes. Do we have any other memories? I think we've done pretty well, actually. Anything else you remember, Mara?
Not right now.
What an interesting story about my dad. Those of you who knew my father, he could get animated sometimes in the pulpit, and we always had Sunday dinner was right after church. We didn't eat this. We had a snack of supper. We came home from church on this particular Sunday, and I had gone there. I had acolyted early church, so it was my turn to do the potatoes and get the meal started. So we all sit down for dinner. My father looks down at his plate, and there's 3 peas on his plate. Nothing else. And he looked up from the plate and he said, "Thelma, what's this all about?" And she goes, "That's 3 P's. That stands for pulpit pounding preacher, and you better calm down."
How cool is
Told
that?
him he was just getting a little too
Oh,
animated.
wow. Wow. So your mother had never watched Pastor Turley when he was there?
No,
When he'd get up there and start shouting at all of us?
I
Like,
can just imagine.
wow, yes. But it was great. I always loved it.
But Turley came after.
Yes, yes, definitely.
I remember going up to your house when I was in college, and Faith would be there, and somebody would come up and knock on the door. They wanted to get married. They had a marriage license, so Faith and I would be the witnesses. We did that a couple times.
Oh, that's cool.
Right in the parsonage.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, my parents were, yes, at 5 in the morning. And Mother said people were looking at their calendar for months. And 4 years later, when they had my sister, she said, "I proved them all wrong." So, well, thank everybody for coming. It's been a wonderful
Very
luncheon,
nice.
and we appreciate you sharing your memories. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting us.
And Gene, thank you. Glad you all could come. And there are more goodies if you need some carbohydrates for the road, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And you can take the placemats,
Yes.
and everyone can
Okay.
take a flower arrangement.
Okay. They are?
Have they been different each time that you've gotten together?
They have been different each time.
Yeah.